Hi there everyone. Today we're talking about living on the edge, edge computing, edge banking, edge energy generation, and even edge governing. The whole concept of the edge is actually quite interesting. Edge computing and edge energy generation is particularly interesting because obviously if you're doing computing on the edge, so near where you need the answers, then you have lower wait times as you wait to get the answers back rather than always connecting to the cloud and trying to get your answers from the cloud rather than a computer that's closer to you where you're doing the calculation itself. However, edge, the whole concept of the edge is actually very important because if you think about banking, local banks are really the secret to financial prosperity for countries, and Deng Xiaoping found this out when he went to Japan in the mid-70s, about 1976, and Professor Richard Werner covers this, the economics professor, who recently was on a podcast with Tucker Carlson, and he talked about his book and his work in relation to the Japanese economy and how local banks providing capital to local industries create jobs and productive economic activity. Now, in the first Trump administration, Gary Cohn was one of the luminaries there, and he really juiced up the economy, the American economy, in 2017, 2018 by providing liquidity to regional banks, to the outer structure of the banking system. Central banks are great, they do a lot, they have very important roles, but it's those smaller local banks that lend to smaller companies who employ people and who engage in new technological innovations, more production, that really makes things in the economy work well. And in Germany they call it the hidden champions, where they have these economic champions, companies, who are very successful, but because people haven't really heard of them, they're called hidden champions. And it's that kind of local banking that helps those companies become hidden champions. And so the concept of the edge, whether it be computing, is very important, but also banking. So banking close to where the jobs and the local technology and innovation and production is being produced, rather than just having big centralized banks. However, it's not just banking. It's also energy generation. So these days, if we're looking at net zero and we're thinking, how do we get there? Well, you need to produce energy on the edge. So if you've got a big building and that uses obviously a lot of energy for HVAC, heating, ventilation, air conditioning, that's what HVAC stands for, HVAC, you basically need to create power from that building. Well, how do you do it? Well, one of the ways you can do it is by having solar panels on the building, and also you can have some of these energy glasses that are available, like Clearview in Australia, which is a listed company, and they can produce up to 80% of a building's energy needs from using that kind of energy glass. So that's edge energy generation. So the building that's using the energy is actually creating the energy from units that are on the building, whether it be solar photovoltaic or these energy glasses, which is sort of similar, but not as power efficient because you still want to see through the glass. But that would allow you to produce energy on the edge where it's being consumed from the structure that's using the energy as well. That's very elegant. So edge energy generation, that's another way we can live on the edge. And then finally, edge governing. Now, one of the things that's not very well known is that the English Civil War, so Charles the First, King of England versus Parliament, that war is seen as very much as one side winning and the other side losing. But the reality is that, firstly, the king came back. Secondly, parliamentarians who had engaged in that, most of them either got exiled, killed, or the other third died in time before the King Charles II came back. But also it was the local councils that got the majority of the power, not Parliament. So local councils or government on the edge, government close to the people, that was the real winner, okay? And that's why these concepts are very important. Polymath thinking is so important, because you may think that the English Civil War was King v Parliament. Well, the outcome was very much that the local councils won, not Parliament. not the king. And that's not very well understood. However, once again, local councils are close to the people they're governing. They should be able to do it better. There should be less information asymmetries. They should know more about their local region and be able to deliver with knowledge, with local knowledge. Hence, local councils, local government, hence governing on the edge. So, the more we can do things on the edge, the better. And that will have us living on the edge. Let me know what you think.